as they say, last but not the least, but I think this is probably the most crucial aspect of electrification because I think, as we've said before, charging infra typically is turning out or could turn out to be a hurdle. A lot has to be done the way EVs are growing, more and more EVs on the road. Is the charging infra, keeping pace? More than that, in terms of power, supply, distribution, a lot to talk about. We have a very eminent panel which has just been introduced, and I'd like to start off with Mr. Goel. Tata Power, Discom in one way, as well as having, the widest charging network. So really, you've kind of led the way in this. Really the largest been part of the revolution. But, I'd just like to get your thoughts looking at, obviously today, as I said earlier, I've driven from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, 4,200 kilometers, and I have to say that we relied on your charging network for most of the way. And then, of course, in the south, there were others. We had Karthik help us out as well. But clearly, to be honest, we did have some challenges. It's early days still. But I'd just like you to give an overview of how you've seen the kind of, let's say, growth in charging infra. Is it really keeping up right now? More needs to be done with the kind of pace of growth of electric vehicles. Very often, you land up at a charging point, there may be one or two vehicles when there weren't any either. So clearly, what is the utilization rates? Is that still a challenge? I mean, with technology, with apps, can you kind of increase efficiencies on that? So just wanted to get your opening remarks.
Thank you. And so there are many questions which are asked in this. So let me try and answer one by one. Tata Power has deployed approximately 5,000 charging points now, and it is the largest charging network in the country. More than the number, I would say today we have footprint in over 400 cities and towns. So today one can travel from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. He has traveled himself. You can also travel from Surat to somewhere close to Silchar. So the entire country can be today traveled. In fact, on Facebook, I recently saw someone saying from Kolkata to Amritsar. He traveled in an EV and he was very happy. So the network is good. And it is getting added up every month. Every week, there are new chargers which are getting deployed and energized. So there is it's a journey. You first identify the best location, then you deploy the charger, then you apply for power connection. So every week, new chargers keep on getting added. In Tamil Nadu, we have roughly about 145 charging points. And Chennai would be about 50% of that. Equally slow and fast both. Now, if we look at challenges of using it, the challenges which were there maybe 6 quarters ago, they don't exist today. Today, people are far, far more aware. People know that there is something called emergency switch. So there is an emergency switch in the charger. So how does it work? It's not like, you can pull out the pin and then walk away. The gun will not get released. If you have programmed it to charge for, let's say, 300 rupees or 30 kilowatts. So to stop the charging operation, you will have to stop the charger through an emergency button. And what happens is the moment you press emergency, like any other electrical device, it will stop functioning. And you can release the gun. Earlier, people used to say the charger is shut and it is not available for charging. But today, EV consumer knows. The first thing they check is the emergency button switched, pressed. They can release and make it functional. That's one. There are many communities today. Third is there was one difficulty which people used to have is, and that was certain set of customers. They used to have difficulty in operating the mobile app. So there were elderly customers who used to say, give us something which is very simple. So about 2 months ago, we have launched a RFID card, which is a tap and go. So you just go, tap, the charging happens. You want to stop, tap again, and the charging stops. So such innovations are continuing to happen, and I think it is a journey, it will happen. On the utilization, it is very good in some places, it is good in some places, and to improve in a few places, it depends on many factors. One of them is EV penetration. EV penetration is not equal across states. However, as a gentleman in the previous session was also mentioning, it is a chicken and egg story. You don't deploy chargers, people don't buy cars. People don't buy cars, chargers don't have utilization. But if you don't deploy chargers, the car sales will not happen. So it is a very, very balanced approach which one has to adopt, and which is what we are doing. And today we are seeing lot more enthusiasm amongst users. People travel because of lower cost of travel per kilometer. Even if there is a 2-day off, people want to travel out. And we see very clearly the utilization goes up on a Saturday and it comes down on a Monday. So because they are back home. So once they're back home, they do the home charging. But on Saturdays, on Sundays, or any extended weekends, it is clearly visible that people want to travel and the more usage. So, and I think that will continue.
That's an interesting point you raised, that you see the usage going up on weekends and comes down on a Monday, because the general assumption is that EVs are fundamentally city-bound, but I think what you're saying is that people are traveling a lot with it as well, using it for weekends. Karthik, want to get your thought on this? Sorry, you want to add something, Mr. Goel?
Yeah. So just to add, see, for a city travel, if we look at a city travel, normally does not require public charging. For that, home charging is there. So Tata Power has installed about 65,000 plus home charging. And it is a unique offering which is developed in India. If we, to the best of my knowledge, you buy a Tesla, you first buy the car, then you buy a charger, then you look for a technician to deploy the charger. And in few countries, the cost of a home charger is maybe 20% of the car cost. So in India, it is highly simplified. You buy a car from the OEM. So let's say we serve two of the OEMs. So one of the OEM whom we serve, you buy a car, we get an inquiry automatically, we connect with the customer, and we deploy the charger even before the car is delivered. So absolute peace of mind. No customer need not go and search for any information on net or offline. We are part of Tata Power, which is a 100-year plus company. Second, it is an arrangement done by the OEM. So the OEM knows what is best for his car. So the home charging comes along with the car. So there is no need basically to charge within the city. But when you are on a highway, so today we have presence in over 350 highways in the country. And and they travel across the country. In fact, right. Karthik can add.
Right. Yeah, in fact, I think, as you said, a lot of people have home charging. That's got its own challenges, which we'll talk about. Installation of home chargers, that's a separate discussion. I think that's where Arjun will also come in. But Karthik, just turning to you clearly, just to understand what trends are you seeing are with the more confidence in the charging network, people are traveling more with their vehicles. Is it still very much a city phenomenon? Again, as Mr. Goel said, that's where the home charger kind of supports it. They don't really need public charging. But And also to understand, let's say, to have further penetration of the charging network, because we are a big country. Clearly, Tata Power has covered most of it, but there are still huge gaps. Northeast, for example, is quite vacant. Some remote parts of Kashmir or Leh Ladakh are also not served sufficiently. Obviously, that will come. But, looking at, and you're concentrated, I think, more in the south. From your point of view, clearly, how costly is it? What are the economics of it, to kind of start deploying chargers? And because in the end, it's not a charity, it has to make business sense for you. So just to understand, the economics of it, and obviously that's what will drive further deployment and further geographic spread as well.
Yeah. In terms of the number of chargers deployed as opposed to what is the need in the market, we've barely scratched the surface here. So going forward, if we are to see 30% or something thereabouts by 2030, the level of home charging and public charging that is required is going to be multiple times of what we have now. But having said that, the charging infrastructure that we have today is not static. If somebody said that 6 months ago, I did not have a charger on a particular stretch, today you would find that there are at least 5 different chargers along that route. I would like to slightly emphasize on the utilization part or the unit economics part of a charging station, a public charging station. See, the fact of the matter is, a lot of people think that the utilization on a public charging station is low today, and once we see enough EV adoption, that would go up. We believe that that is not going to be the case. The case with public charging stations, the utilization factors will almost always remain low, because your utilization happens at a particular time in the day, and it happens probably 60 days out of 360 days, 365 days that we have in a year, right? So it's the 60 days that are essential, that the vast majority of the business happens, right?
So what percentage is, let's say, a good utilization, for example?
So, percentage terms. So let's take a ballpark here. So I'll just give you a very rough number. So if you take charge point operators in Europe, right? So where you see EV adoption 5-6 years ahead of us, right, where you have a BEV adoption at 25, 26, or 30% adoption in certain markets, and markets like Norway, where it is 80%. The one of the largest charge point operator we track is at about 17%, right? And that is like 5 years ahead of us or 6 years ahead of us. And that is going to remain for us, because see, what happens is, when vast majority of your charging happens at a particular time in the day, and it happens at particular days in a year, your charging is going to be bunched up, right? So if you have, let's say, 10% of utilization, and that rises to 15%, you are already having customers queuing up. And that is a loss in experience. Customers will not wait 40 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours to get a charge, right? So when somebody turns up, they need a charger, they need a plug to go then and there. So what happens is, you hit 15%, you start seeing customers queue up, and immediately you have to deploy another charger, and your utilization is again cut into half, right? So now your average is like 7.5% at 15%. So this is going to happen over and over and over again. So the economics of a charging station has to be viable at 15% or 10%. Otherwise, you're never going to make it. If you're going to wait for 50% or 40%, that is, I mean, utopia. You can wait forever. That's what will happen, yeah.
I want to get Mr. Goel's response on this 15%, but before that, I just want to get your sense in terms of how are you seeing, let's say, driving patterns right now. I mean, just to corroborate what Mr. Goel said, are you seeing EV owners going a lot more now beyond the city?
Yes, that is happening. What we are continuing to see is that wherever any corridor that has a very reliable set of chargers, not just by one operator, but more than one operator, you are seeing utilization go up substantially. We had a stretch where for a very long time, we were the only operator there. And immediately there was another oil marketing company that deployed on that stretch. And what we saw to that effect was that our utilization immediately went up, which means that once customers are sure that there is enough robustness in the system that even if one charge point is not going to work, they can still find another one, then the EVs plying on that stretch substantially increase. And I would also say that it is actually more the budget-oriented customers, the mass market customers, the Tata or the Citroen EC3 customers who do most of the stretches. And I think in the morning, Mr. Balbinder was making a point that the Audi customers are the ones who have the longest range in a car, and yet they continue to drive only within the cities. But the irony is that the cars that can do about, let's say, 180 kilometers or 190 kilometers or barely 200 kilometers, those customers actually take the plunge, and they are quite an adventurous lot, I would say.
Those are the real true EV early adopters, I think, in that sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Mr. Goel, very quickly, 15% utilization, what Karthik said, I mean, is that a business case? Is that how you make a business case? I mean, would you agree with that figure? Because
no, utilization, putting a number to utilization is very difficult because it depends on what is your size of the network, what are your plans, and also what is your EV penetration. So if we look at state-wise, the utilization percentages are differing. If I have to put a number, the utilization is 0 to 30%. In fact, 0 to 35%. There will be some chargers which are giving 30-35% utilization also. Not all. But then there are also few which are on 0. However, if we look at, and which is what I think one of the previous session, and I keep referring to that, he also mentioned about charging infrastructure availability for e-mobility adoption. See, it's like people may never charge on a public charging station, but everybody wants charger to be present everywhere. If they don't get that comfort, they don't adopt to electric vehicle. So, as a charge point operator, today, it is very difficult to say that 15% is a good number or 10% or 20%. But I believe that once the car population crosses 5% penetration, we will see exponential growth, and which is what we have seen across the world. The reports say that. And then we can say that hockey stick phenomena will be visible, and once we have adequate number of cars, we will certainly see much, much better utilization percentages.
I think what we've not touched upon really is, and we're going to touch upon is, home charging, because clearly, as you had mentioned, that most EV owners charge at home, but there are big challenges in that. And Arjun, I think you offer a unique solution, a mobile charging solution, clearly to address the problem of challenges with societies, RWAs, people wanting that convenience. I don't know how cost effective it is for, let's say, the consumer. Clearly, I would imagine it's far more costlier than, using, a regular home charger, or even a regular public charger. But, just want to get your sense. Obviously, your product is designed to address a fundamental shortcoming in the charging network, which is home charging.
Yes. Thank you. So I'll begin with setting the context in terms of the bigger problem statement. And I'll try to connect the dot from the previous panel discussion. Suman was mentioning that, when it comes to three-wheeler, there is no charging problem. But when it comes to four-wheeler EV charging, it's a very unique problem statement that we need to solve. The load required is typically minimum 7.5 kilowatt, right? And that's, to set the kind of a parallel or a analogy, is equal to a load that is used to run a three-bedroom household. Now, this is the state problem number one, load. The problem number two is, unfortunately, the charging time of an electric car coincides with the peak load of the city. Now, that's the dual problem with the two load distribution, right? And all of us have been trying to think how it is different than a typical ICE car sales or adoption versus EV adoption. This is a very fundamental question. The type of household a consumer used to live was never a concern when you were planning to have adoption of a normal car, ICE car. But for EV, this is a very, very important question. Now, the question is not only about the load, it's availability of load and the parking. Now, if you set this metrics, how many people have got access to neither? 60% of India actually lives street parks, right? So 60% of India does not have access to parking and the load.
That probably rules them out of the market as well.
Major market, if you don't give any solution. That's number one. Now, who are the remaining people? Remaining people in multi-story condominiums, they have parking, but unfortunately, they do not have a load, right? Typically, the way the builder develops a multi-story condominium is literally on a concept of a floating load, which is typically 1/3 of a peak load that is required to run a household, right? Now, EV is a different new monster in terms of load. Now, therefore, it was important for me to actually explain this, whether there is a niche segment we are targeting. Yes, this is a niche segment, and also to some extent it is little, a little different than the thinking that the other panelists have here. In terms of these people are not the early adopters who were having luxury of having both in their independent house. So far, whatever trend we have seen,
Or
so
someone
far,
who would take the travel of going to a public
exactly.
charger.
So far, whatever data we have, whatever learning we have is from those people. Now, the early majority in India lives very differently than Europe and America. Therefore, we thought that we will change this equation. We'll take part of this load off grid. And we came up with the solution which is based on a lithium-ion power bank. And it literally kind of, if you are a subscriber to HopCharge, you are literally off grid for your charging needs. And you must be surprised if I reveal one important data point from our customer base. 29% of our customers literally do not have any home charger, right? Now, this is very unique insight and very important as well because, what we believe fundamentally is it's about sharing the infrastructure, right? A mobile charger has a capability to serve more people overnight and more people during the day. Therefore, the utilization goes very high, and with fraction of cost of installing charger in every single, parking, you can actually serve more customers. Now, if that is true, at scale, eventually, the cost can come significantly lower than what we offer currently because it's an early market fit, right? And therefore, we are costing around 3 rupees per kilometer to end user. However, we do have plans that offer mobility in a very unique fashion of, unlimited kind of a mobility plan, wherein a pool works in a certain fashion. For some customer, we actually come, about 1 rupees per kilometer. it's a pool subsidizing each other, you know. So it's a very unique way of solving a problem wherein a pool is funding the infrastructure required and that infrastructure is shared.
But, you said 60% don't have access to charging because either issue of street parking or the load.
Yeah.
Then you also said, you're looking at being in a niche, but clearly this is not a niche. It's pretty big, 60%. But how scalable is, your product? Because clearly it's quite a niche. And do you think also it's a bit of a transitionary phase because clearly by then there will, have to be kind of steps taken to improve the charging infra because it's going to be quite obvious that's the only way to kind of, accelerate EV adoption. So just how scalable is this? And then I want to later then turn to, other panelists on this whole issue as well.
So we'll take a reference from what happened in America for last 15 years, right? Now, in 15 years, America EV adoption happened from the places like California where people have access to garage. Even today, America, San Francisco, New York never could actually do this. The reason simple, the problem lies in a distribution grid. And let's assume for a moment that the distribution grid is sorted, you can invest in the grid and get these feeders, substation, station up and running, up to speed, 3x load that we need in future. Now comes the next bottleneck in this whole equation, and that's the RWA. RWA, unfortunately, is a non-profit organization managed by a person who has a full-time job, some other job. They meet once in a year or twice a year, and we all then suddenly expect they will do a miracle for us and get us that, captive transformer upgrades, captive upgrade in the infrastructure, and also handle all those issues around the, around related to the regulatory aspects, the insurance aspect, the occupancy certificate aspect. I was in the panel with in Charge Day last month, and one of the key finding was that, the problem is the building occupancy certificates are given on a basis of a power footprint that you give it to at the time of handing over, right? Now, your insurance is linked to that as well, right? Now, are we saying that, okay, we have to go to this new next step, extra step to actually get it renewed with a new blueprint, right? And also potentially look at the insurance aspect of the building. Now, as far as the scalability is concerned, we are partnering right now with the RWAs, we are partnering with the real estate, we are partnering with the OEMs as well as the CPO, because, for CPO, like Karthik mentioned, the utilization, certain days of a year, but in partnership with HopCharge, utilization is massive because the entire demand is aggregated in a very, coherent fashion where you have the subscriptions ahead of time at the time of car sales, and in the back end you have a high utilization on those days where chargers are idle.
But yours is still an AC charging solution. Is it 7.5 or so?
No, it's a DC charging
You have a
solution.
DC charging
It's a DC charging
about
solution.
25, 30 kilowatt.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, please, Mr. Golan. Yeah. Because I think this is really a hot topic. Yeah. It's a on-ground reality. These are really the challenges. Small nitty-gritty issues which are really difficult to solve.
So, see, the home charger is the primary charger for any EV owner. And it is very important to have a home charger because A, it is cost economical, B, it is a convenience. It's not like fueling up at a petrol pump, so you would not want to go out and wait every other day. So on an average, if we look at today, in India, each EV owner on an average drives for about 1400 kilometers. So at least 7 charge is required. Now, as Arjun mentioned, getting NOC, see, one is the parking issue, second is the NOC issues, which is a genuine on-ground problem. So The solution which we found out for NOC issue in society, especially, so these problems are observed in society-driven markets like Mumbai, Pune, Delhi NCR, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and now in Chennai as well. So what we have developed a solution which is called as community charging. A community charger is like a common charger which is deployed. Like in Chennai, we have recently deployed. If any one of you are from Chennai, we have recently deployed in a society called Metro Zone in Tirumangalam. So let's say any residential society which has 100 plus flats, we talk to them, we deploy 1 or 2 or 3 chargers, which are AC chargers to begin with, and they are there. We generally look at, that at least one EV is there, but even if there is no EV, we still deploy. And what we have seen is, let's say we begin with one EV being there, and we deploy a charger. Over the next few weeks and months, we see EV adoption increasing in that society because the charger presence gives a lot of comfort to the occupants. Even if they don't buy, they start exploring. And whoever has to buy the next car, they look at EV as an option. So with this community charging, which started off earlier as an OEM input, because the cycle was the customer used to book the car, go to the society to take NOC, but NOC was not issued, he comes back and cancels the booking. So that's when OEM said, why don't we look at something like this? We worked with the societies and developed this product. So today, we have roughly about 1,200 such charging points in Mumbai, Pune, Delhi NCR, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai. And now it is across Jaipur, Lucknow. So this is one segment which is going to cover at least 50-60% of the market. Globally, 83% of the charging happens at either workplace, which is our office, or at home, because these are the two places where car is parked for the maximum time. Otherwise, the public charging is only when you are on a highway. Yeah.
Karthik, interesting point, that what Mr. Goel has found is that let's put the chargers first, even if there are a few EVs, and that will drive adoption. Seems to be in terms of chicken and egg, that is whatever you call it, the chicken or the egg, but at least the charger before the car. I think, would you agree with that? I think, let's get the charging network really saturated as much as possible. Of course, that depends what saturation is, but that's one issue. But again, on the whole issue of, RWAs, societies, Mr. Goel talked about a community charging. Arjun has quite a unique solution, is just turn up with mobile charging at that point on demand. It's like literally like bring the petrol pump to your house or office or whatever. I mean, that's what it is. So just wanted to get your thoughts on this very thorny issue of really, which irks customers and in fact is a tipping point of whether to buy an EV or not.
Yeah. So in terms of public charge points, yes, we have taken that approach. We started off in late 2020. So at that time, our approach was being ahead of the market, lay out the charges and the EVs will come. So that has been approach, that will continue to be our approach, and I think there could be points in time where the EV adoption has gone ahead of us and the market is demanding more charges. So sometimes we are playing catch up in certain areas, in certain corridors. We could be laying out charges ahead of the cars. So we are continuing to do that. But just adding to the point Mr. Goel mentioned, the primary requirement for an electric vehicle owner is home charging. So that has to be sorted. There is a lot of misconception. Somebody in the earlier panel this morning mentioned about education, right? So the approaches or the mindset here is, whenever I talk to a large gathering, I ask people, you buy an ICE vehicle, where do you go to fill up? You go to the petrol pump. You buy an electric vehicle, where do you go to fill up? To the charging station. No, you don't go to the charging station. That's a matter of fact. The fact is that you fill up at home, right? So that's the most convenient place to charge. And Mr. Goyal was saying that it's 83% globally. I think all of us were there in Tata Motors charging. For Tata Motors data says it's 93%. So 93% of charging happens at home or the workplace, right? And the presence of public charge points or DC fast chargers on highways is again an important part of the puzzle, but it's not the most important. It has to be there to complete the ecosystem. Without the public DC fast chargers, the ecosystem is not complete. But the large part of the puzzle is about charging at home. And community charge points are a wonderful option. So we are also looking at that. We are deploying certain community charge points in various apartment societies. Because the beauty about community charge point is that, let's say you've got a 200 apartment society, assuming that at some point you will have 200 EVs, you can actually solve that with 20 chargers. You don't need 200 chargers, one charger at everything. And it's not just about the hardware. The connected load is humongous. I think he made the point of, let's say, 7 kilowatt chargers, 200, you need about 1.4 megawatts of connected load.
Right.
And at any point in time, you're never going to use more than 200 or 300 kilowatts of load. So yeah, home charging is the less spoken about or the less sexy part of the ecosystem that needs to be sorted first,
Right.
in my opinion.
No, I think, as you said, if the figure is 93% of Tata owners have home charging, it just goes to show that how many potential customers are being lost because there isn't home charging. I mean, I think that is, so really, I think that's one way of looking at it. I just want to turn to, sticking with you all, other prickly issues, support from governments, power, discoms, clearly distribution, power availability, a big hurdle right now. I know we were speaking earlier even to get, let's say higher capacity chargers to go beyond 25 kilowatt, 30 kilowatt, 60 kilowatt, what it is, we know what it is in Europe, where, people are with 2C charging now coming into car and 3C charging eventually. This is still a problem.
The most important stakeholder is the discom. It's not the OEM, it's not the charge point operators, it's by and large the discoms. Because essentially the power that flows through the charger to the car has to come from the discom, right? So unless the tariff issues, for a very long time, we had one of the most highest...
Are the tariffs still quite high? Is that clear?
It is. I mean, the government has taken note of that fact, and they had made some revisions with respect to Tamil Nadu. But that has helped, much appreciated. But in comparison to other states, Tamil Nadu continues to be still among the highest in the country. In terms of Tamil Nadu being number one in terms of EVs, there is a slight confusion here, and that is Tamil Nadu is definitely the number one when it comes to attracting EV investments. When it comes to EV adoption, unfortunately, Tamil Nadu is still not in the top 5. The expensive charging tariffs, the support in getting loads or connections from the discom continues to be a pain point. And the one-time charges that we have to pay to get connection from the discom is still quite high. That is high, that's more of a pain point in other states also. It's not just something particular to Tamil Nadu. I would say Tamil Nadu is less of a problem in that sense. But the capex required, not on the charges, on the upstream infrastructure is the major pain point when it comes to higher loads. And the way higher loads are charged in Tamil Nadu is actually, as you get more connected loads, your expenses or the fixed charges that you have to pay gets increasingly higher, right? So which means you're actually disincentivized to deploy larger charging stations or hubs, if you may. So the problem is, if you stick to under 50 kilowatt, or if you stick to under 110 kilowatts, you tend to be more, your cost structure remains very low. But the moment you get above 150, or let's say 110 kilowatts, it becomes an unviable proposition to deploy large charging hubs here.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Goel, very quickly, say some very points over there.
very
Clearly,
interesting.
government's got a lot to do. They play a key role in this.
Yeah.
You know, you being a CPO and a DISCOM, you got that unique kind of a, you know, both sides.
See, I would, to add, even the documentations can be simplified little more, you know, because getting those documents, although it has been simplified a lot, there is a lot of digitization which has happened, but still I see a lot of scope there. And I'm not too sure, but then if it is possible that upstream infra can also be developed considering the future requirements. See, today I deploy a charger. I cannot deploy a 240 kilowatt charger or a 180 kilowatt charger at a public charging location, because today it is not required. But it is going to be there as a requirement 1 year from now, maybe 2 years from now, and max 3 years. So the upstream infra can be developed by the DISCOM. And we can be, as we are keeping ourselves, you know, prepared ahead of the curve, so that a quick upgradation can be done. Like Karthik mentioned, nobody would want to queue up. So adding up a charger or upgrading a charger to a higher capacity would be easier. Otherwise, there will be frequent upgradations of upstream infra which would be required. And I think power, land, and technology. These are the three things which are going to really help.
Especially land for fleet charging.
Land for fleet, land for public charging. See, reliability or availability of the charger is the key which a consumer is looking at. So if you want to put more than one charger at one place, you need chargers. You need land to be there, and then you need power, the load to light up those chargers. So you need power, you need land, and technologies. We have a beautiful app which is Tata Power Easy Charge app. It can navigate, it can search, locate, navigate. You can do everything. So technology is already there.
Right. But, you know, we're running out of time, but I want to end this session on one thing, which is convenience. And to be honest, we don't have the convenience of charging the way we have with, let's say we go to a fuel station. Now look, in the US, you're used to getting out, taking out the dispenser, putting the gun, the fuel gun in and filling your own fuel. Here you are asking an EV owner to go from someone filling the fuel in to making him fiddle with an app. Very often I'll be honest, your charge points are in some obscure place. They're not properly well marked. It's a challenge. Everyone has their own app. It's fiddly. Why can't I just pay with a credit card? Or I take it even further. I'd love to have an attendant who comes with a gun and says, "Sir, kitna?" And he said, 30 kilowatt dalo. You know, that sort of thing. So Arjun, I want to turn to you because your product is all about convenience and ease of operation. So do you think, you know, going forward, and I want to talk to all of you, how do you make it a lot more convenient and painless? And honestly, this is what each one of you all can do, because having each one, I've downloaded a Xeon app, I've downloaded a Tata Power app as well, so, you know, wherever I go, I don't want to have so many apps. But I'd like to start with you first, because your, let's say, product is about charging convenience.
Sure. So I think, as we rightly identified, convenience is one element and the reliability another element, part of convenience. And I think one understated or ignored fact is that the perception about infrastructure is very, very important, right? Therefore, what we personally believe, and we are very much open and collaborative in our approach, is because from our perspective, the community charger have to be installed, right? The public charging CPOs have to grow. And a hybrid model like ours have to be deployed. It's a very large market so that we can create that perception for people to really conveniently adopt to EVs, right? And as far as concept is concerned, from our standpoint, we value one, reliability. What we mean by reliability is whenever someone opens our app, our subscriber, do they get the desired time slot they want to charge on? That's one KPI that we monitor. The other KPI that we monitor is T minus 15, which is being available at your location on time, right? And the third and most important, and that is also part of convenience, is we implemented a zero call policy. The entire process for the subscriber is call free.
And do you have an operator who does it?
Yes.
You have
and
an operator.
We have an operator. We have a 24/7 service, a manned operation. It's an assisted operation.
Manned operation.
Yes. And all of this brings you obviously little added cost of operations, but at the same time, huge multifold increase in the utilization.
Right.
Right? And therefore, you can actually utilize these assets much better. And more and more we go close to the steady state, we actually bring the cost down and eventually pass on the cost to the end consumer, right? So it's all about creating a infrastructure that's reliable, convenient, and perceived to be available whenever I need it, wherever I need it.
Right.
If we do this well, I think there is a large enough market for community charging, the public charging, the home charging, and everyone, it's for everyone, it's win-win, you know.
Thanks, Arjun. Very quickly, we're running out of time, but Mr. Goel, again on convenience, he's talking about manned operation. Again, I understand why you'll have your apps. It's proprietary. You get the data. You get all the analytics. I mean, it's quite obvious. But I'm just trying to say, draw an analogy to like I'm going to a pump. I mean, how convenient? How much more convenient can you make it?
So see, pumps are to be compared with home charging. Home chargers are far, far more convenient than going to a petrol pump. I don't like going to a petrol pump. Okay, home charger is so convenient. I just go plug it in the morning. I plug it out, and the car is charged. But if we look at public charging stations, see, apps are highly simplified, and it is not possible. It is commercially not viable to deploy an attender on every single charging station. But in days to come, I see that we will be having more of charging hubs. There will be multiple chargers at each location. And we might have...
Some of those could be manned.
Some of them could be manned. But when we speak to consumers, not many people find
these
this
are the early
as
adopters. They don't mind that
they
pain
don't
and
mind.
adventure.
They don't have challenge in operating a charger. It is only for the first time, second time. Today, all of us are so tech savvy. See, no one taught us how to use WhatsApp. Today, there are so many new apps which we download every other day. So I don't think that is a challenge. The challenge is the anxiety which they have. Will the charger work? Is my charger delivering the charge? That's the apprehension or anxiety they have, which I think will get addressed as they keep on using the vehicle. What we are doing is we are trying to identify best of the best places in the country where an EV owner would want to go. Like you find chargers in most of the hotels of Taj, Ginger, The Park, Oberoi's and others. Plus, we have also tied up with a lot of highway pit stops and creating business opportunities for them. Because they have also understood that wherever there are chargers, EV owners stop there. So it is like also developing businesses, supporting the small and medium enterprises which are in highways. So we are trying to continuously expand so that the convenience of location is there. I stop for charging, at least I have some amenities, I have a clean toilet, I have air conditioned, or I have amenities to use. I have internet available.
Right. So, Karthik, I'll let you have the last word. A lot on convenience.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think I think location is becoming more and more important. But we don't often see that because, again, there's a cost to it. Obviously, you can't choose the ideal location you want, and that's not always the case.
Yeah, locations are obviously very, very important. So finding the right locations is a large part of the convenience and the customer experience. I would also like to add that technology is going to make it more convenient, not just in the app. The best technology is to do away with an app, right? So what we have done already is that we have introduced auto charge, which means that once we set up the account for the customer, what happens is all the customer has to do is come in and plug in. So immediately once the customer plugs in, the charger recognizes the car. The car has a unique MAC ID. So that ID is sent to our service, and that ID is already mapped to the customer's account. So as long as the customer has balance, the charging happens without any input or intervention from the customer. So all the customer has to do is just plug it in. Everything is taken. This is the so-called Tesla experience, right? And this is done through a lower secure means right now, which is called the auto charge. Going forward, there is another standard that is being implemented in US and Europe by certain auto OEMs and the charge point operators. That's called the ISO 15118, which is the plug-in charge standard. So once that is implemented, all the customer's bank account, the vehicle, the charge point operator, everything works in a very seamless way. And once the customer is plugged in, everything happens in a very seamless way. There is no need for an app. There is no need for an RFID even. The RFID really simplifies the whole process. And auto charge or plug-in charge is taking it one step further, which is already being implemented and it is being experienced by our customers. And that is I don't think there is anything more convenient than that. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Karthik. Yes, convenience. On that note of making it more convenient for the customer, we'll end this very interesting session. I think clearly we know there are a lot of challenges, but there's a lot of things happening. I think the main problem is that everyone is acutely aware of what the challenges are and developing a workaround for it. And in the transition, we have solutions like Arjun has. I mean, I don't know whether I should call it a transition, but at least, it's serving the purpose right now. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks all of you all still here for your patience. Hope you've had a good day. And with this, I would like to formally end the session. Thank you very much.